So, I want to give all praises and honor and glory to the only true God of heaven and earth, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Israel, whose true name is Yahweh, and to his only begotten Son, the Messiah, the Lamb of God that taketh away the sins of Israel by the shedding of his own blood, whose true name is Yahweh Shai, whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus. And double honors to my elders and teachers and great millstone, and honors to all the prophets and teachers that carry the spirit of faith and the spirit of truth within them. My name is Zachariah. Hear my speech concerning the truth, that is the word of the living God, which word pertains to you Israelites, which are you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, Latinos, and Native Indians, even you Israelites that may have the appearance of the heathen, that may have the identity of the heathen, are really descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, if you believe, if you have faith, then that serves as an evidence, a sign, a witness that you may be an elect and that you are an Israelite. For the spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai in old times have testified of the faith of the election, or how the just shall live by faith, or how faith is as a treasure in God. So if you believe, then the Spirit beareth witness of your spirit. Um, Now I came across something interesting, concerning, a statement or concerning the speech of DJ Trump, the president of America. Really, he's a king of Babylon. He's a king of Egypt. When you go into the scriptures, America has the epithet of being Babylon and Egypt. Because the scriptures have a mysterious nature to them. According to uh, the will of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, it is shrouded in, secret meanings. And through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, we have the understanding of these scriptures. So in many of the passages of the Bible, when it speaks about Egypt, when it speaks about the land of Syria, when it speaks about Babylon, it's referencing or touching, America, concerning America, you know. Um, Now recently, today, or not today, yesterday, right now is um 23rd, 2:41 a.m. So I'm upbeat. Basically, yesterday on the 22nd, Donald Trump have recited the snake poem. Now, he also recited the snake poem in 2024 on October 24th. And basically the time duration between these two dates is 666 days. So the last time he recited the snake poem was 660, well, from the recent time. He recited the snake poem on the 22nd. The time between is 666 days. So that would be 667 now, basically. But the point is that, or about 667. The point is that Esau is symbolically revealing who he is, revealing what he's about. And now I touched on this a long time ago, the snake poem that Trump have made, which I thought it to be spiritual. I looked at it from a spiritual perspective. Not just Trump himself, but Edom in general. They are of the same disposition of that serpent in the garden, that devil in the garden that beguiled Eve. It is written in the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2, that by his envy brought he death into the world. So he practically became the father of death in a way, the creator of death in some sense. And Esau Edom have that same disposition. He's spiritually tied to that old serpent. Now Esau Edom, which is a nation, a family of people who descend from Esau, today known as the so-called white man. And they play a very important role in this reality. These be an adversary, an enemy of God, of all that is holy, and the children of Israel, right? They are the devil, the Satan that is mentioned in different passages of the Bible. They are the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan. They are the man of sin that Paul spoken of according to the wisdom of God, the son of perdition. People whom the Lord have cursed unto a perfect destruction, a perfect damnation. And that's what's coming, judgment upon his people for all the wickedness that they have done upon this earth, for all their evil dealings and injustice. Right? But the point is that, this guy Trump, speaking on him specifically, he revealed himself to be the snake. Now, in fact, I could read the snake poem for a moment, which shows you the nature of this guy Trump on a general level. Esau Edom altogether, and see, this is to the hurt, of all you who have believed or had some form of confidence in this system, in its rulership, in any of the American administrations, presidents, and the elites, and the rulers and the politicians, and this authority of this American and Western world. It shows you how beguiled, how deceived you are by all the evils, all the lies, and all the confusion that's being manifested now. Here it is, the people is hurting, the world is mourning, but your rulers, your kings, and your princes, they are inactive. They are of no help. They're sitting down while you're hurting. The people who you thought to be for your help are the ones, creating your hurt, constructing your sorrow, orchestrating your sorrow, inflation, making moves that hurt the economy, that hurt the supply chain, and on a deeper and darker level. this man, he's planning to bring about, crisis, orchestrated crisis on a large scale that's going to lead to the death and the sorrow of many, the elites, you know, who conspire in secrecy and darkness concerning evil things, you know, Uh, and they have the nature of that. They share the nature, the disposition of that old serpent, the devil in the garden, who was the father of lies, a deceiver, a liar, and a murderer, you know, which, the serpent and Cain, are in the same league, if you will. They're in the same, field, being in opposition against the wisdom of God, by the serpent, by his envy. He constructed a lie, a falsehood against truth, the truth of God, that is, you know, thou shalt not eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, lest you die. That of itself was an ordinance, you know, uh, a command, given to Adam, given to Eve, and by, keeping within, you know, uh, uh, the boundary of living according to that precept. Adam and Eve would have, Adam, specifically Adam, who was the son of God, you know, would have been connected to the presence and the power of Yahweh. But by disobedience, did he go outside of the boundaries of wisdom, outside of the boundary of his presence, you know, the boundary of his power. What did the Lord cast? It is written that the Lord cast Adam out. The Lord separated Adam from the tree of life. It is written. So the old serpent, the devil, which wasn't no literal serpent, it was a man, you know, constructed a lie, that was in direct opposition to that very uh, order, to that very command, to that very truth, that you shall eat of the fruit of this tree of knowledge of good and evil. And said something to that sort unto Eve. And it was all through an envious hatred spirit, as it is written in the book of Wisdom of Solomon. Through his envy, the devil brought death into the world. And what came by his anger, by his envy, as it is written in the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 10, he left the presence of wisdom through his anger, through his anger. It was known that murder was evil. It was known back then, right? But through his anger, he left the truth. He left God's presence. He left God's power. He left God's goodness. He went outside of wisdom through his anger. So it is with Adam, I mean, with the serpent and Cain, these Edomites, they have that same disposition that is indifferent to the wisdom of God, to truth, to God Himself. Being a liar and a murderer, being full of envy, especially towards you Israelites. So from there, let's read this snake poem. I'm just saying it. On her way to work one morning, down the path alongside the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor half-frozen snake. Yeah, and it starts off with two figures, a woman and a snake. And yeah, what does that remind you of? Eve and the serpent, you know? So it gives you, you know, um, an old theme, an old, you know, it's a reference. It's a reference of something old and ancient, history, you know. This is a tender-hearted woman saw a poor half-frozen snake. His pretty colored skin had been all frozen with the dew. Oh well, she cried, I'll take you in and I'll take care of you. Take me in, tender woman, take me in, for heaven's sake. Take me in, tender woman, sighed the snake. And this is exactly what these Jakes, you Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, Latinos, and Native Indians have done. With a measure of trust and confidence and hope and sense of security in the system, in this government, in this form of welcoming has been, manifested throughout history. You know, what God did with the European men, you know, making all these peace treaties, promises, they let in the snake. So many times in history we have you Jakes trusted uh, in the serpent, man, in the snake, you know. But on an individual level, on a specific, sort, this guy Trump, through his charisma, through his fear of speech, did a lot of Americans take him in, you know? That's not to say half the, country didn't hate him, but you have some who accepted him, many who have accepted him, you know? Look what he have done ever since. Look at the economy. The spirits, the people are broken. The laborers, the hard workers, you know, the common folk, the widows and and the fatherless, the poor and needy, the sufferers of society, you know, they're mourning, they're broken in spirit, you know, and now the thought to rise up to rebel is growing ever than before, more than ever before, you know. It says she wrapped him up all cozy in a comforter of silk and laid him by the fireside with some honey and some milk. Yeah, you have people who invested energy within this place, within this country, within this government, within this Trump administration. You know, casting their votes. You know, but on a general level, just in this kingdom and in this society, they have invested. They have given their energy, their labor, their substance. You know, since she hurried home from work that night, and soon as she arrived, she found that pretty sneak she taken in had been revived. Take me in, tender woman, take me in, for heaven's sake. Take me in, tender woman, sighed the snake. She clutched him to her bosom. You're so beautiful, she cried. But if I hadn't brought you in, by now you might have died. She stroked his pretty skin again and kissed and held him right, well tight. Instead of saying thanks, the snake gave her a vicious bite. And this is what we're going to see in these coming times with the rulership. The rulers of this world, the rulers of this kingdom, will do is going to be evil, horrible. With certain crises they are conspiring to do. They are in the process of doing, collapsing the economy, hyperinflation, famine. A lot of these crises that's going to come is orchestrated to a degree. Even a blackout, which the prophets have been signaling and prophesying about, will come. Some cyber infrastructure failure. And this the infrastructure this place in many aspects is going to fail ultimately. And a lot of it is planned. Remember the Georgia Guidestone, you know, the elites set up a stone, you know, with inscriptions of what will happen, depopulation, that was one of the inscriptions, so they are, you know, intending for depopulation, a mass crisis, or a polycrisis that's going to lead to the depopulation of the people, a lot of deletion on the earth. It is prophetic, Revelation chapter 6, specifically over here in America, there's going to be a lot of death. Since she stroked his pretty skin again and kissed and held him tight, instead of saying thanks, the snake gave her a vicious bite. Take me in to the woman, take me in for heaven's sake, take me in to the woman, sighed the snake. I save you, cried the woman, and you've bitten me, but why? And your bite is poisonous, and now I'm gonna die. Oh, shut up, silly woman, said the reptile with a grin. You know damn well I was a snake before you took me in. Take me in to the woman. Take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in to the woman, sighed the snake. Take me in to the woman, sighed the snake. Take me in to the woman, sighed the snake. Right, so, you people, you American people, you have put your trust in the damn devil, you know, plain and simple. This is the book of St. John, chapter 8, verse 44. You are of your father, the devil, and the lusts of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it, and that's who Esau is. He's the devil, you know. And ultimately, you Jakes have took, Esau as your father. You walk after his patterns, you know. You know, this is Book of Revelation, chapter 12, verse 12. It says, "Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil, that old serpent, is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he have but a short time." So Esau Edom, with his draconian laws, policies, and measures, he's going to come down upon people, the inhabitants of the earth, with great wrath, and there's going to be a lot of deletion, military mobilization, lethal force. It's going to be a lot of that, man. It's coming soon, man. It's prophetic, you know. So he's the devil that's being spoken of, and this is a time that's coming where he's going to come down upon the people with great wrath. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 30, 33, verse 8. And this gives you an insight of what's to come. It says, "The highways lie waste, the wayfaring men sees them," and this is coming. The time where the traffic of America, in other words, the infrastructure of this kingdom, will fail, will cease. You think about the supply chain system, the system involving truckers, involving, the food stability of this place will cease. The time of economic activity will cease due to the evils and the crisis that will come, you know. So the time shall come where there ain't gonna be no food in the shelves. People ain't gonna go to work because they're either gonna be dead, surviving mode, or hiding, you know, or can't go to work because society will have ceased, you know, because of some crisis or evil, you know. The time of clocking in, that's gonna cease, man. It's gonna be a world societal collapse, you know. So that's what this is signifying. The highways lying waste. The wayfaring man sees if yet economic activity will collapse, societal collapse. Ye have broken the covenant. Ye have despised the cities. He regardeth no man. And yeah, it's relevant. The scripture is relevant in the times that we're coming to. Because ultimately he's going to come against the Constitution. You know, he have despised the cities. He's going to show a complete disregard. You know, in rejection of the people. He regardeth no man. Yeah, you common folk, his own population, he's gonna completely pass to the side or destroy. You know, and this is coming, man. But as it is written, Isaiah chapter 33, verse 6, "And wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times, and strength of salvation. The fear of the Lord is his treasure." And that's self-explanatory. Wisdom uh, is centered on the cross of Yahweh Shai. Yahweh Shai is the standard of wisdom. The testimony of Yahweh Shai is the standard of wisdom. You know, and then Yahweh Shai become to know God. I'm gonna close off on that, Lord willing. This lesson's edifying. I want to give all praises and honor and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem, B'chach Word Shema.